All right, students, welcome on back here for another fantastic edition of our weekly workshop here, Traders Talk, this Monday, St. Patty's Day. Happy Patty's Day to all of us here just joining us, whether it be inside our live trading room or on social, on YouTube, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. Great to see Luis, Gillis, Margaret, Robert, Roger. Great to see Gary, Daniel. I see Christopher from just before, Charles. We've got Bell joining us here today. Perfect. All right. So those are all of our students inside our live trading room, at least just joining us, and I'm sure plenty more. But otherwise, at Cyber Trading U is the handle on social media. If you're new to our stream, new to our social media, at least here on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, etc., our main handle at Cyber Trading U on YouTube, that is. So be a friend, tell a friend, especially at the end of this workshop. Just make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button down below. But with that in mind, I just sent out a poll question to all of our students, at least. I see Debbie joining us here. I see Guy H joining us. I see Mark R, my neighbor in the Tampa area. Before the market opened up this morning, I just asked a poll question to our students here. What stock or which stock were you most interested in trading for the day? That's always subject to change. But the way I worded it, though, was, hey, before the market opened up, so before all the craziness happened, obviously we're moving around inside our live trading room. Well, what stock were you most interested in following for today? Quick shout out here to a couple of our trial members joining us here just to start for this week. I see Mark B over in Florida as well. I see Robert M as well. He says, first time, did not make the open. No sweat, Robert. We look forward to having you throughout this whole week. But, you've come to the right place here in Traders Talk, this workshop I do every Monday. This is basically the best outlet for us to explain why we're doing what we're doing. So it all starts with this, actually. Before the market opens, like what stock were you most focused in on? And that goes to like students, not just yourself, but it looks like a lot of us were focused on two trades separately, either the QBTS or the NAOV trade. Now, of course, there's always large cap stocks we'll focus on. Our main group really is like Tesla, Nvidia, Apple has been decent, but there's always others mixed in, Palantir, SMCI, those we've done well on. But looks like overwhelming answer here between QBTS and NAOV. So let's basically just recap those two trades to begin. Go through the X's and O's. Why did they make the moves in which they had made? And go from there. All right. So this is where, at least from the end of last week, this has been on a roll, been pushing up from Thursday into Friday, has only pushed up higher from that point. So it's easy to say, like, okay, well, hey, like right at 7 o'clock in the morning, the stock took off. It was moving up, leading into the open. It was moving higher from Friday. Let me ask Kerry. Let me ask Alicia, Frank. See Ravi joining us here, perhaps, or Paul B, perhaps. Just a lot of students, perhaps, just in the background here. What price levels should we assume for there to be iceberg orders at for this type of stock? It's not too expensive. Not too expensive. Definitely the whole dollar levels there from Alicia, but you could also factor in like the 50-cent price levels too. So like $9.50, $10, $10.50, $11. The more expensive this gets, the more volatile it gets. I would just focus on dollars there, the whole number levels there. But let's just right away just look at like prices like 10, 10.50, 11, etc., etc. Because when I'm planning out any trade going into the open, I'm going to first focus on this. Then we'll actually take a look on Bookmap. We'll go on level 4 and see where the real levels were. All right. But these are all assumed levels going into the morning because it's not too expensive of a stock. Probably from the end of last week, too, you saw big icebergs at those prices as well. So what's easy to say in hindsight, what's like Captain Hindsight here to say is, well, it held resistance well off of 12, basically, pop and drop, held resistance at 12 after, dropped back down. It eventually settled off of 10.50. It eventually did here. Quick question, folks. Kerry, Gillis, Debbie, and Sam, all of us here that wrote just before, from phase 1 class. We talked about this a couple months back in class. We'll go over it next month even. What time do stocks typically reverse? Every week we ask the same questions, folks. We go through the same motions because, of course, consistency is key. The more that we are locked in on the same step-by-step process, then it makes it a lot easier for Luis to react, or Marcella to react, or Frank to react, or any of us here. So 10:30 in the morning, right? All right, well, when this is dropping down here right away at 9:32 in the morning, 9:35 in the morning, 9:50 here, is it still shaking around? I'm not thinking it's gonna, reverse instantly at that stage because if we're more prone to believe that reversal time, loosely speaking, is around 10:30, give or take, then at least later on, notice what happens. It does pull back down. This run is not confirmed yet. This is more of a false breakout here. This does not hold support at this point, does it? Well, from there, it ended up obviously coming back down. 10:30 on the gun. This thing hits $10.50. One plus one does not equal three, right? It does not equal three, it equals two, meaning that factoring in reversal time plus 50-cent level equals nice little bounce, right? Oh, hey, that's Captain Hindsight speaking, right? So that's easy to say after the fact. But let's now factor in at least where we had the real levels. This is a whole conversation on assumed levels. Of every 50 cents, right? Yeah. If trading was that easy, you and I wouldn't be on a trading chat room right now. You and I would not be on a YouTube right now, if you know what I mean. So let's at least go over this in full. Gotta go filter out my book map here. Okay. So leading into the open, we are looking for a move up. We are looking for a move, whether it's the break over 12 or whether it's to see support build, then the push up at least afterwards. So we do have resistance at 12. 30,000 on the ask there, another 40 or 34,000 on the ask here. Some even stacking up higher too. You see that there? There's 1250, 50-cent level. Now, otherwise, though, let's focus down. Let's focus down below where this is all happening here, below all the price action here. Can our students in our trading room, like Marcella, Luis, I see Bill joining us, Patrick, talk to you in just a moment, Debbie, of course, Alex P. Where do we see support? Where do we see support looking at the orange or red lines going across the page underneath where the price action is? Underneath all the squiggly lines right here, this is the price action. So below where we have that, where do we have support? What looks the most easy on the eyes? What looks the most obvious? I'm not trying to toss a curveball question at you here this time. I did back in phase one class just before. I would say 1090, right? It's out there for a long time. It's out there since 7 in the morning. It's 33,000 shares. That's much larger than everything up top here, no? So definitely we have support at 1090. And that could complement the $11 level at least, not just as support, but coming up as resistance because we know it broke down. It broke down here this morning. So that could be something to focus on for support or otherwise resistance there. One moment here. All right. So outside of that, the only thing that would stand out to me here is on the far, far, far right side here in red. No pun intended, far right red. No, it's just to say at least you have a big spike of volume here from this column, and this indicates a lot of selling pressure. Red we would indicate as sell off. So that's something to think about. The more sell off that we have here at 1160, and it dropped off at least a little bit afterwards, right before the market open, right before the market open, it smashed below that. Well, at the minimum, that would be treated as resistance. So what I'm pointing to here is that with the 50-cent levels and whole number levels that we have alongside at least the icebergs, I'm going to delete this here, delete that there. I would be focused around basically these two areas together to create a resistance or otherwise to see it flipped into support. Once we happen to have this better flipped into support, the thought of this running up higher to test this as resistance greatly increases. So this thing's been a pain in the ass, at least throughout the day, aside from the fact that 1050 held as support, that was off the reversal time. Now from there, though, you could see it tried to build the support here within this 1090 to 11 area. It did it for a while here, but it obviously failed to make that better run. So if you're treating this as a day trade, first off, I mean, our best move was around 10:30 in the morning. But outside of that, though, this could have been right place, wrong time. This would have been very long and drawn out for me to stay in. Let me ask Sam and Margaret and Day here, and a lot of us just joining us. I kind of ask the same catchphrases that I always go through. So, when I jump into a trade, when I jump in, when I buy, simply put, Sam, what am I looking for shortly after? Once I jump into a trade, what am I looking for pretty shortly after I press the buy button? Yeah, a lot of us all saying big move, right? Keyword big. Yeah, if this is taking its sweet time here and it's not pushing up higher, then I'm wasting my time as a day trader. Key phrase there, day trader. If you're in this as a swing, I mean, good luck because it's already been up so much from last week. Probably do expect at least some support to build for long term. But outside of that, though, as a day trade at least, this is not a big move shortly after. This is like holding support, maybe. This is trying to right here. Okay, maybe it could pop. It doesn't. It comes back down. And the longer it just wastes your time, then you don't know the opportunities that you could be taking advantage of here in between, that you're not looking at. Just before we were focused on a bunch of other trades, at least in our room before. So between CRVO, between BBAI, between the nuclear trades, the more that you're watching this do nothing and you're in it, then there's opportunity that you're just missing out on, right? So this is just where you want to just jump out. But what's easier to say though after the fact is this does not break down any lower. This actually continues with a loose trend of higher lows. It does. This is still higher lows in relation. But that's what allows us to rethink this again as a day trade. Okay, if it's really going to break back over this area here, and as long as it doesn't break below it, then the possibility of this running and making that big move, whether it's shortly after or if it takes its sweet time, then as long as it's trending up, as long as it's at least making a conscious effort of higher lows, higher highs. This took way too long for me to stay in because again, there's plenty of other trades out there that could be making a better play, a better move. So with that said, at least I don't mind jumping back in on the same trade I went like break even on earlier. I didn't take this trade. We were actually in class at this time, just in terms of trade psychology. I don't mind taking a dinky break even trade. And if I see it inching back up here to the same area, maybe 20, maybe 30, maybe an hour later, all right, well, you know what? I'll have the same anticipation of big move, but I'll play it very conservative. I'll play very tight here with setting my stop right below here. Let her play nice. It's been chopping around way too long. So at least for what's ahead, that would be my focal point to try and see this come back up to 1160, 1150 to 1160, that next area. And if it can break over that, then we would need to see that flipped into support. If that flips into support, then there is a better chance for us to get up to 12. It's always level by level when you're day trading, especially now at this time, because we know reversal time's around 10:30, but that doesn't mean it's going to make a full-fledged run all the way up higher. Remember, the stock had a big move already from last week, so this could be fairly just more, quite frankly, more exhausted now at this stage, where maybe it doesn't run higher, maybe it doesn't tank, but if it's just going to grind, then okay, then in that case, at least you take a clean entry from 1090, that 11 area, and if you could walk out with a profit, all right, we'll take it. But I'm typically expecting big move shortly after, right? So QBTS, I mean, this was just basically the only area in which it was trading in today. It didn't pull back down towards Friday's close price. If this completely pulls back today, then certainly I would say Friday's close price, wherever that was, we'll find that out in a second. $10 there, is it? $10.15. Well, that likely is going to be a huge focal point for us afterwards here today. So if it really does pull down and break below this again, then I would look for like 1015-ish to be support. All right, so that was QBTS at least, from earlier, why it made the move in which it had made. The other one didn't do as good though, even. NAOV, this was like a stinker. This thing dumped off right away when the market opened up. Now, as far as reversal time, we know that's at 10:30, loosely speaking. But when the market opens up, What are we typically doing, folks? Patrick, Sam, Gillis, Alicia, what are we typically doing the first 3 to 5 minutes? You're waiting, you're sitting. We'll call out levels, we'll call out stocks that are trying to move. Keyword those trying. This looks great going into the open. Popped at 7 in the morning, higher lows. The more it can nip and test this $4 resistance, there's the thought of it flipping that into support. Oh, this looks great here before the open. So, hey, for a stock going up and up and up and up, we are at least seeing, buying pressure, right? Okay, good. So in that case, then I have a good setup here too. So it's just unfortunate that when the market opened up right at 9:30, it popped. Oh, it's at 9:35 on the nose. Okay, perfect. So you know what? We'll bring this up here too. But it popped, it dropped, and then instantly if it's not even gonna try and flip four from resistance into support. This is big move. So where I discuss big move shortly after, obviously, we're looking for a big move in our direction. But where I say big move, I'm of course factoring in if it's a head fake, if it's right place, wrong time, and it rejects the level pretty strongly from there. We need to be conscious of that too. I'm getting a big move shortly after. That's my first thought going into any trade, whether it was the QBTS or this. Let's just say worst case scenario, 935 comes and you see this come up to $4. Like, oh, okay, this is going to lead to a pop here, right? So if you were to line up your limit order to try and buy this at like 402, 403 maybe, just like a penny or a few above, and when it breaks over the level, if you're going to press buy, well, of course, if you get filled right at 401, 402, 403, you want to make sure that your stop order is set pretty quickly. That's like, again, the first thing that we'll need to do as soon as we jump into a trade. This was rather fast where it popped, it pulled back. So if you don't even have time to set your stop up, if you're a trader here that you haven't found a quick groove to set your stop order just yet, or if you're forgetting here and there to set it up even, this is just what I want you to think about. We're expecting a big move shortly after, right? So as soon as you see it pull back below the level here, even when it can't even hold this as support as you would expect it to, hit the eject button. There's a close button or like kill button basically that closes you out. It is at market. It is at market technically. A close button gets you out at market. But you got to realize though, if it's not going to hold this as support even, that's the first thing I'm going to do. Get the hell out. Hit the eject button. And I'm going to do that very quick because anytime that you take to wait on that, obviously there's a big drop here, another lower low afterwards. This is a mess after, right? Now, even with this, you might say, all right, well, maybe it was up too much. This was up like 80% going into the open. 80, 85, which granted, it's a lot, right? It's still a lot. Let's not disrespect an 85% move overnight, especially from Friday into Monday. A weekly candle, poof, up 85%. Have we not seen stocks up like 1,000% this week or this month? Have we not seen GV make like a 900% move like a week or two back? So that is where I tell you, hey, we could definitely see a lot more on this trade, but it's got to play by our rules. Not every stock plays by our rules, right? We know that. But if we're going to try and play the stock, then the stock needs to play by our demands. Flip resistance into support. If it's not going to do that, then I'm hands off. So obviously it tanked afterwards, but once it does that, you should, at least if you're joining us each week in this workshop, or if you're a student in our classes, we go through the same motions here each time. I mean, hey, if you wanted me to show you a perfect runner every single time and buy the bottom, sell the top, just kind of a fool's game there, right? There's imperfections with trading, much like there's imperfections with you and me when we wake up in the morning. You know what I mean? So that's where I tell you here, hey, this could have had the chance to hold support at $4. It did not. You got to react when it does not play by our rules. All right. Now, really quick, I have a couple chats here in our room. Join us inside our live trading room, at least after this workshop, especially. Join us as a trial member and get the full, camaraderie, communication, education as well. From Retail Trader, one of us here. It says, I cannot understand. You say look for buyers that are support. But I see in the bid and ask, every buy order it executes at ask price. I'm going to show this comment here on YouTube right now so I can read it in full. So, what exactly do I need to watch for with the bid for buyers or ask for sellers? So, this was actually brought up conveniently enough to a degree in our class I just taught earlier. And unfortunately, I had to push that question off because it wasn't the right time to go through it. Actually, later today at 3 o'clock, we're going to elaborate more on it. The bid are buyers that are looking to have their orders filled. The ask are sellers that are looking to distribute or sell shares that they already own. Now, though, when you see orders on the ask getting filled, well, the only way that ever happens really is when a stock is predominantly going up and up and up and up and up and up. This is going down and down and down. Okay, wrong stock there to use. Looks like the market might be trying to pull back a little bit here. Is that the case? Yeah, not even here. Bunch of stocks, at least that we were just watching before pulling back, though. Okay, so at least from earlier, before OKLO just pulled back, I guess, for this to be bouncing, for this to be making higher lows on the 1 minute chart there from 10:30 to basically noon, we're seeing orders on the ask getting broken through. Well, that means those orders that were looking to be sold, well, yeah, congratulations, they sold those orders. That doesn't necessarily mean the sellers are dominating. I mean, hey, just for reference, if I place an order out there at $50 for OKLO to sell my position, well, it's not going to get right up there instantly. And if it does, that certainly doesn't mean the sellers are winning that battle. To see the stock go from 28.60 up to 50, well, I'd say the buyers are winning that battle then, right? So that's just where we say for my member here on YouTube, Retail Trader. We appreciate you joining us. We talk about time and sales. We talk about buying pressure, selling pressure, who's winning the battle. Well, simply look at the chart, right? At the time when this is moving up, when you're seeing higher lows and it's popping higher, those orders on the ask are getting filled, they're getting broken through. And temporarily at that point here, from 10:30 to 12 o'clock, oh, the buyers were absolutely winning the battle. There was more buying pressure there. Now, as far as selling pressure goes, well, that's where we say what happens here, even like here on this graph. Just, I was going to go over the NAOV, but for the OKLO, you might have a little chart resistance here, a bit of a top. Focus on your $30 price there also, because not just a whole number, but like a decade level number, 30, you're likely to find some resistance there. So at least here you have a little chart resistance here. Then you got $30 resistance there. If it's not going to even try and make the push to break over it or test it, makes a lower high, well, the buyers are losing that battle. And you could just say that based on the graph, right? If it's not going to try and come up here again, if it's not going to even try and break higher up to 30, then you could say there's a chance that the sellers may begin winning that battle. Now, what happens? That means that the stock is more prone to drop. When the sellers are winning the battle, that means the stock is dropping, right? Well, when the stock is dropping, that means that you're seeing orders on the bid getting broken through, including potential support. Now, that equates to red on time and sales. When you're seeing a stock dropping and you're seeing red on the tape, that equates to selling pressure, right? Now, that was just in a nutshell, basically the conversation that I take hours upon hours upon hours. And I mean that literally. I'm not bullshitting you there. Like let me show you here. Coming up even in the phase 2 class, if you're just a phase 1 student, unfortunately, we may not have as much time to go through it all. We got these classes here we're teaching this month in March. Just started with lesson 9 just earlier. Do lesson 10 later today. That's level 3. A time and sales class. You got book map class actually Friday afternoon. But next week, even as we're doing the phase 2 class, more of the intermediate or advanced classes that we have. Well, this is where we're going to have even further time to go through, like interpreting volume live. It's not just PowerPoint stuff like this. So that's really a whole conversation I need to take hours on to go through. So if you don't understand what I just kind of mentioned to you just before, I Get it. I understand because it takes a lot of time for it to sink in. All right. Also, though, just really quick, he just followed up as well. I'm just catching all chat here. Do I need to watch large orders at bid prices for support? And yeah, basically, exactly. So, like even right now, just looking at level 4 right now, live. All right. Well, we do have potential support at 27 bucks. We have potential support first there at 28 bucks, right? So that's potential. Keyword is potential. Hey, if trading was so easy that if it were to come down here, then bounce perfectly, and we just place the order to buy there and kick our feet back up, my friend, you and I would be out there on our own separate private islands, probably enjoying a nice Monday afternoon, right? So that is where we say potential, but we don't want to catch a falling knife, do we? So, of course, it's possible with a lower high here. It might pull into one of these orders and test as support. Maybe that doesn't happen though. Maybe this ends up just building back up from here, and maybe a new buy order shows up to try and help increase the buying pressure involved. So there's a bunch of ways that we treat these iceberg orders for support resistance. I was actually just thinking about this over the weekend. I was thinking like maybe I end up writing like an ebook about Bookmap, talking about how to use Bookmap in full, not just the basics, but market maker mentality. But that's a whole separate conversation for a separate day. At least just join us. At least if you're joining us on YouTube right now, first just take a trial to our trading room. Just test our room out. Even there, you might not see that this is for you in that week. But otherwise, though, in our classes, even next week, phase 2, I'm going to be doing this live market for hours on hours on hours on hours. So there's a lot to talk about there. All right, so let's at least get into right now a couple of other things that we had from the morning today. And this is where I got to talk about this. Even if you're not a crypto person, even if you're not a Bitcoin person, this involves smart money. And our whole philosophy here at CTU is to follow the big money, follow the smart money. So this will apply towards stock trading, of course. Okay, let me just ask actually first, who here owns or is just a fan of crypto, Bitcoin? We'll say Bitcoin. Who here is a fan of or owns Bitcoin? Bunch of us. And IBIT, of course, included too. Bunch of us. All right, good. All right, so how do I even best phrase this here? So with Bitcoin, there's actually Bookmap for Bitcoin, level 4. Like I could pull up Bookmap data here for Bitcoin and load up the whole heat map and show you where the icebergs are there. And those are big. We factor that in with anticipating price action on Bitcoin. Much like actually we talked about with stocks, Bitcoin, I have assumed levels for. I have assumed levels, much like we have the whole number levels for, some of the stocks. Well, for Bitcoin, and I've said this a long while back, my friend Bill in the chat board here, one of our students, he very familiar with this. We talked about it in a coaching call a few times. Basically, every $2,500 is theorized to me as a potential level. Now, of course, levels aren't meant to be perfect, and especially theorized levels at that. But just look at the most recent sequence here where it bounced off of 80,000, moved up to 85,000. Right now, it's been doing great off of 82.5. Okay, even here, 77.5. It crashed into it, obviously. It broke into it. But before that, it held it perfect. And, well, it looks like it made a big move shortly after it hit this area. Even before that, where is it up top here? 92.5, right? 2,500 points above 90,000. So what you're seeing here, is just Bitcoin's been in a consolidation really since the 14th. It's been in this range for really like almost half a week now. You got the Fed meeting coming up this week, right? And market's been getting beat up for a little while. So of course, Bitcoin's been dropping. We've been anticipating this for a long time now. But with the Fed meeting, that's where there's a big difference with what Trump wants and with what Powell wants. We'll see if Powell does what Trump wants here. I think Trump wants to have the rates slashed pretty quickly here. Have them drop. And Powell isn't such a fan of dropping them as fast. any sort of disagreement leads to a drop off, in the market. Any sort of uncertainty or disagreement between two leading, participants of the economy of the country, obviously, you could see fear and sell off. So that's largely why we've been having a bit of a drop, I feel. Uh, had a little update today, trying to bounce up right now and from Friday, I reckon. But we'll see what happens even into Wednesday this week with the Fed. If they do something where the street doesn't like it, well, the markets are going to tank. If the markets are going to tank, Bitcoin's going to tank. Well, why am I even bringing this up? So, what if I told you that there was a trader in the last week that opened up, we'll say a $500 million short position on Bitcoin? Would I ask you, or if I ask you, would you feel confident in buying? What would you say? If I told you someone with proof, definitive proof, it's like not just bullshit talk like, oh, some guy doing. No, it's legit. You could see his wallet, you could see his whole account and transaction. 500 million. What if I told you $500 million? You'd be buying it? I wouldn't be. I would not be at all. This is a website for, I guess, some exchange, and on this exchange, this trader deployed this position. So they're long on some stupid altcoin right now, some smaller crypto, but otherwise, though, they are short on 40x leverage Bitcoin. The position size itself is about $450 million worth currently. They're up about $2.8 million on it right now as we're talking. And that's unrealized profit, by the way. They've realized a good chunk of this already. They've actually closed out part of this short position so far. They've already closed out, some parts back from 5 this morning, just really small, negligible positions, but they're still short about $450 million worth. They are short about 5,436 Bitcoin. Think about that. So right now, I'm pretty bearish, at least, and I've been bearish before I found out about that, trader that is short on Bitcoin right now. There's a group of people on X, on Twitter, actually, right now, and this is where you say you don't trust anyone unless if they show you proof, right? From the platform, from the account itself. So there's a couple of like people on Twitter saying, "Yeah, I'm going to form a group of traders. We're going to try and liquidate that short seller. We're going to try and squeeze them out." Let's take a look right now at Bitcoin price. I mean, we're pulling back a little bit here, but this was from the last 24 hours. So basically, since this has happened, we've seen Bitcoin drop off quite a bit, and it's been making lower highs effectively since. Even this is not a true higher high, and if it was, it certainly didn't hold support. Actually, if you think about this in the same way as we saw that small cap stock, the NAOV, listen, if it's going to break this as resistance here, let it flip it into support. If it ain't doing that, then what do you think is going to happen, right? If it ain't doing that, what do you think is going to happen afterwards? So that's just, from a chart perspective, but now factoring in the uncertainty of the Fed meeting coming up this week, if the street doesn't like what Powell ends up doing, and certainly if Trump doesn't like what Powell's doing, that could lead to a sharper pullback. Now that's where we have this person that's short. So, you know what? Let's flip it the other way around. Let's say, what happens if Bitcoin pops? What happens if the Fed meeting produces a nice move up for the market? They actually have a liquidation price. So, allegedly, if Bitcoin goes up to $85,888, if Bitcoin price goes up to this number here, this trader will be liquidated on his position. Right now, we're at 83.3. And we were up here just a little while ago. I don't think this trader was too concerned, as Bitcoin was still about 2,000 points away from his liquidation price. So now we're only pulling back again, right? Now we're only dropping. So please, I would not be bullish on Bitcoin in the immediate term. For any of my students here that are in our live trading room, they know I'm bullish on Bitcoin long term, right? I'm bullish on Bitcoin very much long term, very much midterm, perhaps by like quarter three this year, we could see a sharper reaction back up towards over 110,000 again. I find that possible. But I've said to you maybe like 2 weeks ago that I could see a big pullback over time if we don't hold over 91,000, right? Once we broke below there, I told you I sold my crypto. That was when the strategic Bitcoin reserve came out. It was like buy the rumor, sell the news type thing. So I'm happy with what's going on right now. The lower we get, the better of an entry I'll get long term, right? So I just feel like if we end up getting more of a pullback over time, I could see us dropping as low as like 60,000, 62,000, 65,000 around there. Yeah, you heard that right. You heard that right, folks. Check this out. Watch this. All my crappy lines here. Okay, so get it on 3-day, and we'll get the whole suite up. There we go. Right there. Okay, so pretty much like we ended up seeing a couple of things play out. So once we ended up turning negative, it took a little while, but we ended up bouncing after a 32% pullback, 32% drawback here. This took about a month time here before it bounced. This was nearing the end of the overall bull market back from 2021, though. So are we going to have a similar type of pop here? I believe yes. That's my prediction. Yes. And actually, I'm going to go so far as to say I think that we end up, unlike this time here, we end up continuing higher, flipping resistance into support and going up, more from that point. But notice where we have bearish signal, it pulled back already. We tanked. We dropped 32% there. Looks pretty similar here. Flip bearish. Might take some time for the real drop to actually happen, but that would take us right around 60,000, maybe even lower. But I'm hands off for now. I'm basically telling you, and I have been hands off since it broke below 91,000 here. It was actually this candle here, basically, this area. But more or less, I'm still hands off until we see support actually confirm. If we take, if Bitcoin ends up pushing back up to like 91,000 and builds support from there, I'll feel a lot better about jumping in there. Otherwise, I'm going to wait. And if I see Bitcoin spike down to like 70,000, 65,000, I'll look to jump right back in on that puppy. I don't need to try and catch the bottom perfect. My biggest fear is missing the bottom in total and it running up without me and me being more hesitant on the run up. So I do have a resistance, that 90, 91,000 area that I would need to see flipped. But for right now, it's either it gets back over that or it just tanks and then I'll see what happens. So right now, I'm hands off. All right, so a couple of things here real quick. I got to catch up with the chat. A bunch of stuff going around there, right? So Armin saying, well, my question here is if that 500 million short gets liquidated, should it not go long? A little confused. Well, actually, that account you can track live, actually. So it's on this website, hyper-info. Obviously, I'm going to copy and paste that for all of us live inside our room. Actually, if you're on YouTube, Facebook Live, I appreciate it if you join us inside our live trading room, and you'll see the post right there. Now, with that there, though, hey, you can keep track of what that person's doing, Armin. If you see that person start up a long position, you'll see it right there. It's real time. That stuff's live. The link I just posted. I'm still exploring that website out myself also, so I don't know that website in and out. But basically, though, if you see them go long, yeah, that'd be a pretty good sign, right? Now, if they get liquidated, that doesn't mean Bitcoin's going to start flying up. There needs to be more buying interest to confirm that. Now, that might not be so hard. If you get a Michael Saylor post about him, trying to buy another $5 billion, $10 billion, $20 billion worth of Bitcoin, I'm sure you'll get a pop, but you can't only hope and pray for him. So there's other traders out there, folks, that are more short-term than long-term. If you wonder why Saylor has a smile on his face, is because he's been playing this long term this whole time. So he doesn't give a rat's ass if Bitcoin drops 30, 40%. I mean, there was actually a point last bear market where he was down compared to his DOA or DCA price. So that's where, hey, he's playing it long term, that is. But there are traders on high leverage with high liquidity that are playing this on short term. So that's where we got to just keep in mind if we're not flipping resistance into support, then this is not surprising. When a trader is short $500 million, right? Like, folks, we're talking about iceberg orders here, 25,000 shares for a $27 stock. Do some loose math here while I'm at it, but obviously I feel like we all know that's not nearly as much money compared to $500 million. This is $690,000 worth of money here. And we're calling that a big level, right? I got a bunch of us here. I see Farzad here, Bell here, Andrew here, Leda here, Patrick here. Probably a trio of Patricks now at this point. The Patricks are taking over the chat board, actually. No, but otherwise, at least, we know that this is big money. This is big money for a stock. Well, if that's big money, then just please, I want everyone to tell me how little money this would be then. How tiny is this then? You know what I mean? So, yes, that is my thought process right now on Bitcoin. Come back to me in a week's time and we'll see where it's at. All right. From Luis, would I buy a put? I'm personally not shorting Bitcoin long term, or even as a day trade. I'm pretty much keen to shorting the mining stocks. I'll short some of the mining stocks out there if there's a good opportunity. But A, those are day trades, and B, otherwise, and nah. I'm bullish, but I'm hands off. We don't need to play both sides of the coin to make money. We need to be confident with what we're doing, right? And that gives us a better chance of making money. So that's where I just say, I'll wait. There's other sectors, there's other stocks, that are moving, folks. Again, I knew Bitcoin was more likely to pull back at least at some point today. So I wasn't as hands-on that. Maybe more on the nuclear stocks, maybe more on the quantum stocks at first there. Guess what's trying to hold its support right now? Not $11, but 1090, where we had that iceberg order, right? At least from earlier today on that QBTS, we talked about that, right? 1090. So, hey, if it holds that, then there's actually a chance for this to try and pop higher. But again, just to let you know here, yeah, this is definitely not big move shortly after. That's for damn sure. This has taken all damn day for this to even try and pop, and certainly now it looks like lower highs. So this might be hanging on by a thread here at 1090. There we go. Shout out Damon here on YouTube right now. He's a proud owner of Bitcoin. I will be soon again myself. See, this is what I learned from last cycle, though. A, don't do leverage. Don't be that $500 million trader out there, because if he gets liquidated, then obviously he's going to be pissed. But I did leverage trading back 4 years ago on Bitcoin, and basically I'll just give you the 5-word title to my story, but maybe 10-word title. But I blew up a $200,000 crypto account on leverage. So yes, don't do leverage. Just own Bitcoin, and that's it. But the difference, though, from last time to now, though, Damon, is that I'm very much cognizant of support resistance. And last time I really wasn't. I was just very ignorant of everything. And I just had a big heart full of Bitcoin. So, yeah, it would have worked out long term. But that's where, if you don't know how to separate investing from trading, it makes it a lot tougher. And to peel back the curtain, because everyone here, zero ego, right? I was trained by Fausto over 10 years ago, 11 years ago, pretty much at this point, as a day trader. So it's actually taken me a little while for me to learn to actually separate my swing trading from my day trading, or rather my long term from my short term. And now, oh man, I feel like a genius selling at 98.6K, or not 98, 89.6K. Now I'm getting dyslexic here on you. But at 89.6, I sold my Bitcoin and dropped down to like 76. Now it's around 82. I feel like we're going to go lower. So if you are trying to catch a good discount, then you have to be keen to sell when it's not looking good, because you don't want to wait too long to sell and then it just spikes right back on up without you. So at least that's the difference from the last bull market to this one. Not just the fact of don't do leverage trading, but also the fact of let's respect support resistance. from Warren, what is Hyperdash? That was just the website I showed just before there, Warren, pretty much. I'm still familiarizing myself with that. All right, folks. Hey, we got just a few minutes to go here, but otherwise, let me know if you have any last questions before we call it. There was one trade I didn't really have the chance to cover, at least just yet. I'll do a quick one right now on it. It was the stock GLMD. This thing's a loser now, but it popped up earlier this morning. It actually had a halt to it. Got halted on the way up here. Took a loss on this stock, Econ, earlier today. It was like trying to push up at least earlier here. It took like 2-cent loss on that. But then on the GLMD, I jumped in on this one. Whoops. These are the two trades I took at least from this morning. So GLMD ran up right away. Now, if you were here with us last week, there was a trade. Honestly, I forgot the name of it. I forgot the ticker. It was getting halted every other second, though. Every 2 seconds, it kept getting halted over and over and over and over. And I'm telling you, you can't jump into it. I think it was this stock BON, BON, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, look at this thing. So first, yeah, if the stock keeps getting halted over and over and over and over and over without the chance of you even trying to take it here or for support to build, then we just move on to something else. So when GLMD got halted on the way up here to begin, okay, like I'll try and trade it, but it needs to not get halted over and over and over and over and over. Like give me time to see support build. Give me time to see a higher high after support builds, right? So I have my line already here. It's already kind of given away, but basically at $3.12 is where the stock had reopened off of a halt. It reopened and it didn't get halted right away. It was shaking around for a little bit here. So basically I jumped in. It was like on the third candle there when it broke under and over. And I jumped in right here, and it wasn't like big money. Obviously, it didn't really make a big push afterwards, but I ended up selling a little bit at 337. And then from there, I got stopped out, break even on the second half of that trade. But otherwise, the same concept. Hey, if it's not going to try and flip this into support, if it's not going to try and break over this next and flip this now into support after, then what are we doing? It's basically more prone to pull back and make that big move the other way. So this might be easy for me to kind of go through after the fact, right? I mean, hey, I call myself Captain Hindsight because anyone looking at a trade after it already happened can tell you, oh, hey, you could have jumped in, could have jumped out. Yes, but we're applying strategy, the same exact strategy here that we teach in this workshop each and every Monday afternoon. Otherwise, that we teach in our classes live each and every month. But it's the same strategy. There is nothing new that I went over here that I did not really go over last week or the week before that. It is the same process. Now, why I say it that way is because the more that we realize it's the same motions each time, not every stock is going to cooperate to what we want. So we have to know what happens if we don't get what we want. It's going to be a big move shortly after. So it needs to play nice. Otherwise, we're moving on, right? Hey, if there's something new within our strategy every single week that we're teaching that you didn't know before, I mean, hey, if you're a new student, there's a lot to soak in and a lot to learn. But there's always an end to a book. There's always, a point where we say, hey, what we're teaching you here is everything that we use. There's nothing else that's going to be magically introduced, over time in one class. So here in Traders Talk, I'm just pointing this out where it's the same catchphrases that I say each and every week, right? It's the same process. We're asking, what's the trend of the stock? All right, well, hey, if the trend of the stock is up, all right, well, then we're at least seeing 4-minute buying pressure. That's where NAOV was looking okay before the opening bell, right? Wasn't looking bad at all. Higher lows. Needs to flip resistance into support. If it does, great. If it doesn't, not great. Right? It's very cut and dry. The only thing, though, is that there's a lot going on. I mean, for 140 of us inside a live trading room, at least, the goal is to follow Fausto and myself. But hey, there's two talking heads going at the same time, talking about different trades. On your own platform. There's all sorts of bright colors. There's all sorts of fast moving numbers. There's a lot of fear about the market in general, about the Fed and coming off the CPI. And so there's a lot of things that could seep into your mindset as far as taking you away from like basically it's like in a sales pitch in a sales world, it's like called the straight line pitch. Yeah, it's taking you away from your straight line. The same motions that you got to keep going through. There's 1,002 different ways for you to take yourself away from that straight line pitch, for you to go through the motion of, all right, what's the trend? Where are my levels? Is the stock retesting that level or not? And once you get in, big move shortly after, right? Let's see Intel here before we wrap. Intel might be a better example, just given that it's kind of been holding up throughout the day at least, flipping resistance into support in due time. But the stock had a pretty good breakout earlier today. So, all right. So, where do we have the two resistance levels here on Intel? Last one before we finish up. I actually got to jump on a coaching call right at 1 o'clock sharp. So, where do we have the two resistance levels here on Intel? It broke over one, and it looks like it's approaching basically the next one. Where do we have our two resistance levels here? It broke over one, and it is moving on up to the next seemingly. 25 and 26, right? I mean, big one here broke over. And from there, I mean, you got a little guy in between, but we're talking big. So 25, 26. So it broke over this as resistance, right? I find it interesting that resistance all but flipped into support. It dropped down towards this area at least, held basically higher low or equal low right here on a little shake. Built that up as support afterwards, and then it moved back up. Now it broke to 26 here. This is where we're expecting reversal time, though. Generally speaking, 10:15 to 10:30. So it's not a surprise for as much as it ran up, for as much as it flipped resistance at first into support. And it broke above the small little resistance here at 25.50 in between afterwards. So clean shot. Maybe it could keep going up higher. It's possible. Again, it's not just all about seeing this after the fact, but from where it stands here, it is possible, like in an hour's time, it could build back up. It just didn't. It just kind of came back down here. Then it started to build back up a little bit more as we're doing this workshop, right? Now, as we're doing this workshop, it seems to be trying to make a move back up towards that 26 level again. So I actually like this here as a potential breakout trade. I mean, literally right here. I mean, we'll see what happens in the next hour, next 30 minutes to the next hour. But simply put, the more that a stock can keep pinning itself at a level and testing it and nipping and poking that level, I'm talking about 26 still, then there is a clear-cut chance for this to break out and run higher. Let me ask us this question before we jump off. What's our next big red line now that I show on the screen? What's the next big red line that I show now up top on that screen? I didn't show it before. 27, right? So if this can keep nipping this 26 level, the more times it keeps testing that level in a smaller span of time, I'd be more keen to think it's going to pop and make that big move shortly after. Now, the issue here is just that it went up to it here. This is the first time it tested it since 10:30 in the morning. That's a lot of time in between level tests. The more times that we see this stock test this level in a smaller period, I'd feel better about it. So we're not fully there yet. Even on the next little kip up here, up to 26, if it tests it even, I wouldn't be bullish immediately. But the more it keeps kind of doing it in that smaller time frame, then I'd start getting the gears going on a breakout. That's how I, as a human and not as a supercomputer, look to judge it. Much like Warren and Damon and Retail Trader on YouTube, we're all human beings, folks. We don't have an algorithm, a program, a computer to time it perfectly. So, quite frankly, I avoid a lot of BS based on the strategy. I avoid this breakout here because I'm definitely waiting, and I'd avoid the next one too otherwise. But you know what? Hey, there are times where I might wait a little bit too long and it pops without me at first. That happens. All right. Well, let me ask us then, just as we wrap up. Armin, Carrie, Bell, Barbara, Patrick, all of us here. When a stock breaks over resistance, and if it were to run off of it or make a move off of it, resistance should become what? Another catchphrase, right? Support. Don't pull your hair out just yet if you missed a little pop. It happens to me all the time. Again, we're not a supercomputer. We're not the IBM Watson supercomputer, I've been saying. We're Barbara, we're Kerry, we're Josh. We're traders here, we're human beings. So at least coming up, we're going to see what happens. I think it's a very good opportunity. But the more times it tests that level in a smaller time frame, I'll feel better. And then otherwise, if I miss that breakout, then I just flip my head towards what happens when a stock breaks resistance and it runs. Resistance flips. All right. Now, again, keep in mind, I'm just going to show this just as we finish up. Just if you're interested in joining our live trading room, just scan the QR code on the top right corner, right there. Get you access to a week-long trial, eventually to our live trading room. You can go right down to the bottom link there, scrolling in blue below, ct.co/trial. Otherwise, though, we're conducting our classes all throughout this week, next week, the week after, the March phase 1, 2, 3 classes. So basically, coming up later on today for any of our students here, I see Carrie, I see Barbara, John, Margaret, a bunch of us just joining us here. We'll be conducting class number 10, Introduction to Level 3. So pretty much just going over in full, NASDAQ Book Viewer, going over TradeStation Matrix right here. Oh, look at this, 54,000, right? So that will be our afternoon class coming up. Otherwise, though, next broadcast here will be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, just inside our live trading room. Jump onto a couple coaching calls coming up right now as well. I'll catch up with everyone just later on today. Take care.